Alright, so I'm here with Waller, because this is the third time I've tried recording this.
Yeah, we're doing the whole introduction crap again.
Sorry. It's totally my fault. But actually, we were going to do a Batman Arkham 3 game, but we were both agreed, like, let's save it for another time. Batman's getting enough attention with this apparent new Arkham City game, apparently.
Wait, you're not gonna put the Arkham 3 ideas out there before this video?
Yeah, we talked about. I said we agreed on that. Like, retool the ideas for another time, because
all right.
They're basic. Right. We kind of half-assed it anyway.
Oh, okay. You know, your videos, your rules. Let's get underway with this one.
All right, trying to make me look like the bad guy here. Just kidding. Anyway, you and I actually, we put more thought into this than the Batman Arkham game. We just kind of, like I said, we just kind of tossed around ideas on video, and you actually had the most ideas for this. And one more thing, I will be doing another video kind of like this with Tory GNR1, expanding with other characters, but we were talking about Rocksteady characters. DC characters that Rocksteady could expand upon, and Waller had some really cool ideas for Mr. Oliver Queen, so I'll let him take the reins.
Yes, Mr. Oliver Queen, the Emerald Archer, my favorite superhero of all time, Green Arrow. Yeah, I've actually had quite a lot of time to think about ideas for a Green Arrow game. I can't exactly explain to you all the exact plot for the game, but I can tell you the game would start out. It would start out with Oliver's sort of arch nemesis Merlin, sort of helping to overlook an intergang weapon shipment from Metropolis into Star City, and of course Ollie as Green Arrow would bust up the whole operation. He would, in sort of the opening tutorial sequence, he would fight through all of Merlin's goons and eventually take down Merlin himself and get him arrested. The game would sort of open up with an interrogation of Merlin, and he sort of hints to this underlying conspiracy that's going on between a whole bunch of different assassins and criminals and regular realistic, grounded DC baddies, and Green Arrow villains. And at first, it appears as if things are relatively normal within the political world, because Count Werner Vertigo, has actually become the ruler, the king of the country of Latva, and he's trying to assemble a secret force to try to seek total domination of Star City. And to do this, he hires the help of a bunch of different assassins and supervillains. He hires the help of Constantine Dracon. He hires the help of the silent, mute, creepy-ass vigilante killer, Onomatopoeia. And I believe you suggested Deadshot as one of the other villains?
Yeah.
Yeah. He would assemble all these different villains and maybe throw in and maybe while you're at it, obviously Ollie can't handle all this stuff alone, so he has the help of Roy Harper, aka Red Arrow. Yes, he would be Red Arrow in this game. And you would have Mia Dearden as Speedy, and you could also include the Mike Grell ninja character Shadow in there as well, and you could also, and maybe if you're feeling real obscure, you could throw in Arrowhead if you want to. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, you would fight your way through all these different enemies. You would fight Constantine Dracon. You could fight Count Vertigo and Onomatopoeia. Also, another major villain that I also really wanted to add in here. He's a the original version of this character is a pretty long-time enemy of Green Arrow, but it's actually the second is Clock King. But it's not the original Clock King, not the one that had a clock for a face, but actually the second Clock King, Temple Fugit, who's actually an enemy of the Teen Titans. But I feel that it would be really awesome if he was a villain in this game instead of the original. Because in all honesty, I kind of think the original Clock King is really lame. But yeah, but anyways, I'm digressing here. But yeah, Count Vertigo would have the Clock King, Constantine Dracon, Onomatopoeia, Deadshot, all these different villains. Then as soon as you defeat these villains, you actually figure out that Count Vertigo wasn't behind it all, but he was actually being manipulated by none other than Slade Wilson, a.k.a. Deathstroke the Terminator. Yes, Slade would be the mastermind orchestrating all these different events. It would turn out that Slade was using Count Vertigo to amass a large amount of political chaos in his sort of assumption of the King of Latva, and that would sort of sway all the political attention away from Slade, who's forming this secret mercenary army. If I had to compare it with anything, I would sort of compare it to Outer Heaven from the Metal Gear Solid games. You know a little bit about the Metal Gear games and their storyline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how Big Boss forms Outer Heaven, like a mercenary army.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Without countries, all that kind of thing. That would be what Slade would. That's sort of what Slade would be doing, which is ironic, really, because Slade wears an eye patch, and Big Boss from the Metal Gear Solid games also has an eye patch.
Yeah.
That's pretty coincidental, but...
So...
Yeah, but anyways... the final climactic level would just be Ollie going through this entire, island or mountain. Actually, it would be more like a mountain base, where you just fight your way through all Slade's henchmen. You'd probably fight a whole bunch of other DC... non-powered DC villains. Maybe you could fight a couple members of the Secret Six, like Catman. Maybe you'd encounter Bane or Ragdoll. I think that sounds like a really awesome idea for a Green Arrow game, personally.
Yeah. I wanted to do a little expansion on that. How do you think gameplay would go? Because obviously archery, of course, but maybe use a lot of the trick arrows. I'd like to see from this gameplay a lot of.
I've actually had a while to think about how the gameplay would work. You see, when Ollie would be shooting his arrows, it would be just like any other third-person shooter nowadays. They use the whole over-the-shoulder aiming perspective that games like Resident Evil 4, Gears of War, Mass Effect, those kinds of games. The type of perspective they use. Also the same perspective that the Arkham games use, but anyways, you would have all kinds of different arrows to use. You would still have the challenge rooms that the Arkham games have. I always love those because they give you so much time and so much opportunities to practice your skills. But you would sort of have to exaggerate Ollie's sort of arsenal a whole lot to pull off a whole lot of platforming and also combat. I sort of had an idea where Ollie's bow would actually separate into these two long, really hard billy club things that Ollie would use to fight in hand-to-hand combat. And it would sort of emphasize the fact that Ollie's not just a badass archer, but he's also a pretty good ass kicker as well.
Yeah.
And on top of that, his arrows wouldn't only serve as to incapacitate or to wound or severely injure the bad guys. His arrows could be used to solve puzzles. His arrows could be used to help out in the platforming sections, which the platforming sections could also be, they could sort of be very Prince of Persia-esque, because Ollie could probably, this may be a little far-fetched and over the top, but maybe Ollie could extend his bow into like a huge bar that he could swing from. Like if he was swinging from like these two walls and stuff, maybe he could shoot an arrow onto a wall that would detach from like a string, and Ollie could use that to sort of like para rope off the wall and sort of swing from one wall to the next, kind of like the way the Prince does in the Prince of Persia games. I think that would be a fun ass game to play if you want my personal opinion.
All right. So let's talk about voice actors real quick. I know that's kind of minute, but voice actors kind of make the characters. Who would you want to do the voice of Green Arrow?
For me, it's a hard choice between the guy who did his voice in Justice League Unlimited and Neil McDonough.
Yeah, the guy who did his voice in the Green Lantern. I mean the Green Arrow short. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Those are my picks as well. I wouldn't mind either one. I mean, if you're gonna
or, the guy who does his voice in Brave and the Bold, James Arnold Taylor, but he would sort of have to be a bit more serious and a bit older sounding. But I think James Arnold Taylor wouldn't be a bad Ollie, but he wouldn't exactly be my first choice.
Yeah. Mine's gonna be, if I could choose, mine would be Neil McDowell.
Neil McDonough?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some people would probably say, Justin Hartley, did his voice on that played him on Smallville, and I said, nah.
Well, maybe actually you could have him play Red Arrow.
Yeah, that would actually be a pretty cool little cameo. Yeah, I think Justin Hartley as Roy, that would actually work pretty well.
Yeah, I would like to have Grey DeLise come back and do Black Canary.
Grey Delisle. That's actually...
DeLise. I've always said DeLise.
Well, she said in an interview that's how you say her name. But
oh, Delisle, okay. I never saw that interview.
Yeah, but, yeah, anyways, yeah, I thought she was a pretty damn good Black Canary voice, even though she really didn't have that much to say in the short. But, yeah, anyways, I think if I had to choose, I'd probably have to say Neil McDonough, because his Green Arrow was so freaking awesome.
And an 11-minute short, too.
Yeah, it's like, he was able to capture so many different emotions and so many different attitudes in over a time of 11 minutes. That's pretty astonishing, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Also, one very important note. As far as writers go, I love Paul Dini, but I wouldn't actually have him write it, but Greg Weisman, who wrote the animated short.
Oh, wow. I'd love to see Greg Weisman would be really cool.
He also wrote Spectacular Spider-Man and Gargoyles.
Yeah, I know that. He also does Young Justice. Greg Weisman would be a good pick in here, especially with the story you were talking about.
Yeah, dude, Greg Weisman's an amazing writer. I would pick him in a heartbeat to write this game.
Yeah.
I'd pick him to write the dialogue, the character interactions, like the villains, everything. In my opinion, he's right on par with Paul Dini as far as like total writing quality goes.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're running out of time here. Did you have any other extra thoughts? Because we might, if you want to, we could do a part 2 of Green Arrow.
No. Let me quickly sum up. I think I said all I wanted to say. I would like Slade to be voiced by Ron Perlman.
Yeah, that would be really. I really dug him as Slade.
The rest of the characters, I'm not really too sure about, but that's really
10
all
seconds.
I wanted to say, though.
10 seconds. We're running out of time here, so we'll see you in part 2 with my video game.
That's really all I wanted to say. So goodbye.